Jeremy Kinsman is a former Canadian ambassador to Russia. He is currently a distinguished fellow with the Canadian International Council. He also hosts the Red Passport podcast. Mr. Kinsman, good to see you again. Thank you for being here.
Good to see you, Michael. Thank you.
Listen, I have to start out with just how troubling it is, in your viewpoint, to see the kind of yelling match that we've now seen between presumed allies.
I'm trying to find the word, Michael, and I guess I'm going to come up with disgusting, frankly. It was disgusting what happened to Zelenskyy in there. And I disliked enormously the impression it gave, which Trump, of course, has given virtually all his life, of one side trying to dominate another. Zelenskyy has a very legitimate question. He cannot, on behalf of his embattled and very, very hurt people, enter into a truce without some kind of backup security that if Russia attacks again, he deeply distrusts Putin, that he can't do it. He can't do that. And it's a fundamental minimum requirement he has. And Trump, as a self-appointed mediator, has got to respect the minimum requirements of the two parties to the conflict. Anyway, it was the language and the projection of, what would you say, of superiority. Watching Zelensky's face. Of course, he was an actor, and he can control his face as an actor, but he could not control his face when Trump riffed on about, incompetent Joe Biden, and if I'd been president, and I trust Putin. He just couldn't believe what he was hearing, and I couldn't either.
Mm-hmm. So what does it say then about how much support the United States is willing to give Ukraine going forward? How much Ukraine can trust the United States to negotiate with Russia and end to the war?
Every one of America's allies, of course, all the Europeans and very much ourselves, and in our position, our victimized position as the targeted 51st state. We have to ask ourselves, what does this say about the United States position on anything? It's just they're breaking so many norms, and I'm not just talking about vocal behavior in the Oval Office. I mean undoing basic assumptions about commitment to the rule of law, and to, of course, the various organizations and alliances and institutions that are meant to sort of cement it. That it's impossible to know. It could be Zelenskyy, as far as I can see, isn't leaving town yet. It could be that this is a tough part of the negotiation when parties slam their books, their notes down the table and say, "Okay, that's it, I'm out of here," as a pressure tactic, or the host says, "Well, look, there's no point in going on. You come back when you're ready to come a little farther toward us." It could be such a moment, and if so, it would be a very therapeutic moment. But it seems to me that it does reveal a real breakdown, and it's terrible because I'm looking out here over the harbor of Victoria, and I remember all of the wonderful blue and yellow flags that were hanging over all of these buildings, and people out there demonstrating on behalf of Ukraine. And it's such a blow to these 3 years of support of this country that was invaded by its much larger neighbor, who had the aim of conquering it totally. It is such a letdown, and I can't imagine, if I feel this over here, what Zelenskyy must feel now.
Well, and without a doubt,
the burden of responsibility is just enormous.
And without a doubt, Ukraine will feel it first, because they have been fighting this war, this illegal war launched by Russia on the front lines. They are now, it seems, being questioned by the U.S. administration. What does Canada need to take away from this, though? Because, you know, if the United States is abandoning the international rules-based order, which many foreign policy experts say is what we are witnessing right now, how does Canada need to prepare? Because you mentioned it yourself. This is an administration that also talks about annexing this country.
Yeah, well, I think what we're taking from it, we're growing up as with each day. We're getting a little older and a little wiser. I think that there seems to be pretty much a political consensus, certainly as far as the Liberal Party is concerned. I mean, from the Tuesday night's debate, but I would accept also from the Conservative Party, very much from the NDP, that we have to certainly stand by Ukraine. That's a fact. To the extent that we can, we'll stand by Ukraine. And Trudeau mentioned even possibly participating in such a military presence, you know, multi-country military presence in Ukraine once there is a peace. What do we take from it vis-a-vis the United States? That's a big question. And Andrew Coyne has a very strong op-ed in the Globe and Mail today, saying what we have to do is not react to what we thought yesterday represented as a picture of the United States. It's only going to get worse. And we have to insulate ourselves, diminish our vulnerabilities. And there are two basic ways of doing that. One is what we do inside Canada, and that's the premiers seem to be of one mind to work toward that, and building Canada out with a better position vis-a-vis intra-Canadian trade and all other sorts of things. Two, we have to try to reach out, and not for empathy on this subject, to other countries, to our allies, and to really start to commit to real substantive projects with them. You know, I obviously, we're going to have to, it's not a question of finding alternative markets. We need partners in infrastructure, partners in cooperation. I mean, an example I can give you is that Germany and Norway are engaging in a project to build 12 electric submarines, which seem to be, on the surface, ideal for the sort of Arctic work that we need to have done. They seem to be disposed to bring in Canada into that, and not by giving us the 13th or 14th, but to give us the second, or we help to build them, the second or third. I mean, there are projects with respect to the Arctic infrastructure projects, telecommunications projects that we can work out with. There's a new organization, an informal organization. I think it's called the NB9, the Nordic and Baltic countries, and take into account that Greenland is only whatever it is from Ellesmere Island. It's it's 16 or 18 miles or something. That the security of a Canadian route from above Northwest Territories to open water by Greenland is a common asset. And we can work on that. We can work on lots of things, and we got to start doing it toward South Korea, toward Japan, and to the extent we can, because we've burned so many bridges, China. Those are the things we got to do.
Jeremy Kinsman, appreciate your thoughts on what happened this afternoon. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.